On May 9, 2025, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt held a high-profile press conference that marked a pivotal moment in the Trump administration's messaging and policy rollout. The briefing, which included the participation of border czar Tom Homan, focused on immigration enforcement, new executive orders, and the administration's broader law and order agenda. The event was notable not only for its policy announcements, but also for its symbolic displays and the political reactions it provoked. Background: Karoline Leavitt's ascent. Karoline Leavitt, at just 26 years old, is the youngest person to serve as White House press secretary. A New Hampshire native and St. Anselm College graduate, Leavitt's rapid rise from Fox News intern to assistant press secretary during Trump's first term, to communications director for Representative Elise Stefanik, and finally to the White House podium, has drawn national attention. Her appointment was lauded by President Trump, who called her smart, tough, and a highly effective communicator. The setting and symbolism. The May 9th press conference took place on the White House lawn, a deliberate choice underscoring the administration's intent to make a visual statement. In a striking move, Leavitt and the administration displayed 100 mugshots of individuals described as the worst illegal immigrant criminals apprehended during Trump's first 100 days in office. This display, later shared on social media, was designed to dramatize the administration's message on border security and public safety. Key announcements: a 100-day week and immigration focus. Leavitt opened the briefing by declaring the start of 100-day week, a campaign to highlight the administration's achievements in its first 100 days, with a particular focus on border security. She emphasized the president's historic effort to secure our southern border and outlined the day's main policy initiatives. 2. New executive orders. Leavitt announced that President Trump would sign 2 significant executive orders later that afternoon. Law and Order Executive Order. This order aims to strengthen and unleash America's law enforcement to pursue criminals and protect innocent citizens. It is designed to provide additional resources and authority to federal and local law enforcement agencies. Sanctuary Cities Executive Order. The second order targets jurisdictions that do not cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. It directs the Attorney General and Secretary of Homeland Security to publish a list of state and local jurisdictions that obstruct the enforcement of federal immigration laws. The goal is to pressure so-called sanctuary cities to align with federal priorities or face potential consequences. Leavitt highlighted that with these orders, President Trump would have signed over 140 executive orders in his current term, rapidly approaching the total number signed by the Biden administration in 4 years, a point used to underscore the administration's activism and urgency. Policy rationale and administration's framing. Leavitt framed the administration's actions as necessary responses to what it characterizes as a crisis at the southern border. She asserted that the executive orders would protect American communities from criminal aliens and restore law and order. The administration's messaging positioned the crackdown as both a fulfillment of campaign promises and a response to what it describes as failures by previous administrations to enforce immigration laws. The role of Tom Homan. The presence of Tom Homan, referred to as border czar, added weight to the administration's border security narrative. Homan, a former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, is a well-known hardliner on immigration issues. His participation signaled the administration's intent to pursue aggressive enforcement measures and to highlight expertise in the area. Visual messaging. The mugshot display. A display of 100 mugshots on the White House lawn was a dramatic and controversial element of the press conference. The administration described these individuals as violent illegal immigrants, using their images to personalize the perceived threat and justify the administration's policies. The display was quickly disseminated on social media, amplifying its impact and sparking immediate debate. Political and public reactions. Supporters' perspective. Among Trump's core supporters, the focus on law and order and the administration's aggressive posture on immigration were likely to resonate. The executive orders and the visual display reinforced campaign themes and provided tangible evidence of action, a key expectation among the base. Criticism and concerns. However, the mugshot display also opened the door to criticism. Some observers described the tactic as distasteful, arguing that it celebrated the administration's record at the expense of individuals, even if they were accused or convicted of violent crimes. Civil liberties advocates and some political opponents question the ethics and potential legal implications of publicizing mugshots in this manner, raising concerns about due process and stigmatization. Media and analyst reactions. The press conference drew significant media attention, with journalists pressing Leavitt on the specifics of the executive orders, the criteria for selecting the displayed mugshots, and the administration's broader immigration strategy. Analysts noted that the event was both a policy rollout and a political spectacle, designed to dominate news cycles and set the tone for the administration's next phase. Executive orders, details and implications. Law and Order Executive Order. Objective: empower law enforcement agencies to more effectively pursue and prosecute criminal activity, particularly crimes attributed to undocumented immigrants. Mechanisms: increased funding, expanded authority for federal agencies, and directives for enhanced cooperation between federal, state, and local law enforcement. Expected impact: the administration claims this will reduce crime rates and improve public safety, though critics argue it could lead to over-policing and civil rights concerns. Sanctuary Cities Executive Order. Objective: pressure jurisdictions that limit cooperation with federal immigration authorities. Mechanisms: publicly naming non-compliant jurisdictions, potential withholding of federal funds, and increased scrutiny of local policies. Expected impact: the administration hopes to compel cities and states to align with federal enforcement priorities. Opponents warned this could strain relationships with local governments and undermine trust in law enforcement within immigrant communities. Broader context: Trump administration's approach. The May 9th press conference fits within a broader pattern of the Trump administration's approach to immigration and law enforcement. Since returning to office, President Trump has prioritized border security, rapid policy implementation via executive orders, and a confrontational stance toward political opponents and sanctuary jurisdictions. The administration's messaging often blends policy with political theater, aiming to energize supporters and provoke debate. Karoline Leavitt's communication style. Leavitt's performance at the podium reflected her reputation as a tough, disciplined, and effective communicator. She fielded questions assertively, stayed on message, and used the opportunity to reinforce the administration's narrative. Her youth and rapid ascent have made her a symbol of the administration's generational shift and willingness to embrace new voices. Reactions from stakeholders. Law enforcement community. Many law enforcement officials welcomed the additional resources and federal support promised by the executive orders. However, some local agencies in sanctuary jurisdictions expressed concern about federal overreach and the potential for community backlash. Civil rights organizations. Groups focused on civil liberties and immigrant rights condemned the mugshot display and the punitive approach to sanctuary cities. They warned of increased fear among immigrant communities and potential violations of constitutional protections. Political opponents. Democratic leaders and some moderate Republicans criticized the administration's tactics as divisive and counterproductive. They argued that the focus on punitive measures would not address root causes of migration or improve public safety in a meaningful way. Looking ahead, potential consequences. The executive orders and the administration's messaging are likely to face legal challenges, particularly regarding the targeting of sanctuary cities and the public display of mugshots. Courts may be asked to weigh in on issues of federalism, due process, and the limits of executive authority. Politically, the press conference sets the stage for continued polarization on immigration and law enforcement. The administration's willingness to use dramatic visuals and aggressive rhetoric signals that it will continue to prioritize these issues as it seeks to consolidate support and define its legacy. Conclusion. The May 9, 2025 press conference led by Karoline Leavitt was a defining moment for the Trump administration's second term. Through a combination of policy announcements, symbolic displays, and assertive communication, the administration sought to reinforce its commitment to law and order, secure the southern border, and challenge its critics. The event generated both support and controversy, reflecting the deeply divided landscape of American politics. As the administration moves forward, the consequences of these actions, both legal and political, will shape the national conversation on immigration and public safety in the months and years ahead.